you like this podcast, go to the Mr. Bean patron website and make a donation. The link will be in the description. The other day when we was at church, I got talking a little bit about mental health. Stuff I've been going through, and it kind of just stemmed off a little bit with, the fire department, firefighters and stuff. And, it was new to me at first, joining the military, we talk about it with PTSD, but I don't feel like a lot of people take like firefighters, they don't loop them in the same scenarios, right? Unless you're a firefighter, obviously you get it, but from the outside looking in, the typical firefighter, we're just saying putting out house fires. Your first responders as well. So there's a lot of times they're the first guys on the scene when stuff is, at its worst, if you will. And so mental health, how does that come in play with firefighters? What's some stuff that you've noticed, and kind of what are some ways y'all combat against it, if you will?
I just think overall mental health is something we have to have more discussions about and more public discussions. Specifically looking at firefighters, EMS, anybody in the first responder world. In the fire service, last year at Lawton, we made 16,000 incidents. Over 70% of those are medical. And we're running anything from a stub toe, a sick call, to traumatic injuries from car wrecks. We have a lot of speed in our area, high-speed interstates that run through. You see people ejected. You see bodies that, things that people shouldn't ordinarily see. Then you get into, we have some issues here in town. We have a lot of crime at times. Our police department does a good job with that, but we do have issues, and so we see person-on-person violence, whether it be a stabbing, a fight, or a shooting, and so kind of a lot of the same things that our military members see in a different scale, but a lot of times I think some of that scale is what hurts us. In war, I feel like that's an expectation.
Yeah.
As a firefighter, you don't always expect that. I mean, you go to work, you want to help people, you're there to help. And so you start seeing that other side of humanity where people don't care about each other. We see a devaluation of the human, of caring about humans. And so those things start playing with us, and we start seeing issues. And it's not just I don't believe it's a Lawton Fire Department issue. I think it's a nationwide issue with the fire service. I think our police officers see that, and so do our EMS workers.
I don't want to separate male and female too much. I think ultimately we all have our problems. I think at certain times we deal with it differently. Me personally, it was real hard to express any emotions or reflect on anything. And sometimes that leads me down the wrong path. In the military, one thing they talk about is like know your soldiers. Anytime something goes bad, you got a soldier drinking too much, stuff like that. But a lot of that, I look at it kind of like gaining weight. You know what I mean? You don't just one day wake up and you gained a bunch of weight. It's slowly among time. So as a NCO or as a leader, trying to evaluate your soldiers, are they doing better, doing worse? Sometimes it's so small, and then by the time it gets to that point where it's an issue, kind of too late at that point. Do y'all have any issues like that, or how do y'all evaluate, keep track of people?
I do think that's an issue for us, and I compare it to a frog in a boiling pot of water. If you drop a frog in a boiling pot of water, it jumps out. It's immediate change. But if you have that frog in the water and you gradually increase the heat, the frog's going to sit there and stay there. And so much like the military, where you're with your people 24/7, our guys live and eat and breathe and work together every day. Right. And so those small, subtle changes, I agree, it's very hard for us to see. And that's one of the reasons why we try to do more training and talk about, we got to be looking for differences, start looking for things, check on our people as much as we can. I thought you touched on something very interesting. You said the asking for help. Yeah. And I agree. I don't think it's a male-female thing. I think when you look at public safety in general, we are there to help others. And one of the things that it's hard for us to do is ask for help for ourselves, because we're supposed to be the fixers. There is no, we kind of, it's one of a running joke. When you call for help, you call 911. Well, what do firefighters do when they need help? There is no 912. When we get there, we're supposed to fix the problem. Right. And so when we start seeing problems, even within ourselves, we just try to fix it. And so more often than not, that turns to some type of self-medicating or, other substance that they're looking for, which, not against alcohol at all. I think it's okay to have a beer. That's not a bad thing. But when you start self-medicating with that to mask other issues, that's when you see those things start compounding. And it's easy to go, well, that guy's got an alcohol problem. Well, the alcohol may be a symptom of a bigger problem. And so many times I think we just try to look at the alcohol instead of looking at the holistic approach of what's going on that's leading to the alcohol problem.
No, that's true. Like, it's not normal to drink every day. By the time you get to that point, it's kind of like your analogy, warming a frog up in the water. By the time you get to that point, it's almost too late. So what are some ways y'all work to prevent mental health issues? Is that with training, or do y'all have other means?
We have a multifaceted approach, and I think that's something that we have that's good, but I think one of the problems with it is we don't talk about it enough, and that's a Lawton problem, but it's also a fire service wide problem. For here in Lawton, our firefighters have peer support. We have a peer support team those are firefighters that we've sent to training to be able to sit down and talk to somebody. And they're not counselors, and we're not trying to replace counseling with it, but kind of use our peer support team as a gateway to try to get them more help, because one of the things we know as firefighters, and I'm guessing military as well, we're not going to go down and just sit down in front of a counselor and start pouring our heart out to them. And so it's much easier to sit down and talk to someone who's been there, who understands, and goes, yeah, I've made that type of call along the lines. And so it's easier to start developing that relationship and visiting with them. We also have a chaplains group within our department. We have a good group of guys. Several of them are ordained ministers that preach and are firefighters. And so it's very unique that we have that, and so we have guys that will reach to them. And there's each one of them, there's not a solution or one size fits all solution for anyone. Right. And so some people are more comfortable with peer support. They talk to peer support guys. Some of them are more comfortable with our chaplains, and so they talk to them. The city also has an EAP program. It's through Aetna. We've been with them for about a year. EAP, whenever you start talking about that, employee assistance program, some people like them, some people don't. There's always the fear that, well, it's being paid for by the city, so the city's going to know everything about it. That's not true. In fact, I couldn't be more wrong by making that statement. It's 100% confidential. We aren't notified that says that Derek went to EAP. Right. None of that happens, and so it's another gateway in, and typically you get 4, 6, 8. I think ours is at 7 right now. Free sessions with the counselor, and then if you're still needing help or assistance, you can go on, and your insurance can help pick some of that up. That's not the EAP program is not just mental health. It's not just alcohol. There's financial issues. There's marriage issues. All of those things are covered by that. And so if you're having a problem, we encourage our people to reach out to our EAP program. We also have good insurance through the PFFO Oklahoma insurance, and there's lots of good counselors, private counselors out there. And sometimes we see guys that would rather just not let anybody know something's going on, and they'd rather go seek a private counselor and work through their issues there. And that's another great resource they have that they can go to. And then ultimately, we, again, through our insurance and then through the International Association of Firefighters, we have the IFF Center of Excellence, and it's an inpatient facility. It's in Upper Marlboro, Maryland, and we've had members go there, and they speak very highly of it. Our goal is that we want to get people help before they have to go to an inpatient. That I don't want to say that's the last resort, because it's not, because there's still other things we can do, but I think that we've missed opportunities to help someone if they're having to go there. And it may not always be on us as a department. It may not always be on them. It's a multitude of things that leads to people not asking for help up front. And I think one of my things I see is it's just the stigma. Right. Nobody wants to talk about mental health because no one wants to act like they're broken, and they're not. Yeah. I went through, it's about 5 or 6 years ago, OSU Fire Service Training sent me to Oregon to a mental health first aid class, and it was a tremendous class. And one of the things I learned in there is we have to remove the stigmatism of mental health. And again, most people don't talk about it. I think this is one of the things that's great, is having this discussion, because if one person listens to this and they go, oh, I'm normal, then that's a great thing. And mental health issues are normal. We all experience them at different times of our life. We all have problems with them, but we're not talking about them. And so mental health, and your brain is an organ, and I'm not saying our brain is broke, but you know what? I'm kind of a little overweight. I look in the mirror, I get it, and I have to take high blood pressure medicine, or take medicine for my high blood pressure. Our brain is like that too. We have to treat our brain as we would any other organ. We go to the doctor when we don't feel good. We go to the doctor, get medication, help us feel better. Our brain is like that as well. And we have to remove the stigmatism, or the problems, the discussions about it, the obstacles, so people realize it's okay to get help. And it's not a It may not be a lifetime issue. It can be a temporary issue, and it doesn't mean that you're through being a firefighter. It doesn't mean you're through being a soldier, a police officer, or anything else. It's a one-time, it's a problem, we address it, and we keep moving on.
How long have you been a firefighter, Jared?
I've been a Lawton firefighter for 24 years, and I had 5 years of volunteer time before that. So it's kind of getting scary when I say 29 years. There's one thing, and I have not, I don't want to sound like I'm above it or anything else. I don't know that I've experienced any of the issues that I've seen other people experience with the mental health stuff with my career. But I think I had something going for me that we don't see people today have. And starting out in the volunteer department, a great group of guys that I was around, and I could sit here and list the names, and some people would know them, but some wouldn't. But we didn't know anything about mental health. But what we did know is we'd respond to people. And growing up in Elgin and responding in Elgin, I responded on classmates. I responded on people I looked up to that were older than me, my grandparents. I mean, I've been there on all of them. And we didn't know what we were doing, but we'd have a bad call. We may just sit out there and talk on the hood of a truck. Right. Get back to the station at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, waiting for Scott's at the time, or Bruce's, whatever name we want to call it. It's Sonny's now, but you'd wait for that place to open, and the older guys, they'd go drink coffee at 5 o'clock when it would open up, and I'm getting a Dr. Pepper. And we wouldn't talk about the call, but we were just talking. Yeah. I think in today's world, and I've got a cell phone right here beside me and an iPad and a computer, we don't talk enough. We get on our phone, we send a text, and we really aren't just talking about and getting to know each other. Right. One of the things I've done as well is I've been a part of a critical incident stress debriefing team, and during one of our training of that, and it's really what critical incident stress is, you get people to talk about it and really just kind of open it up, and when you talk about it, you're kind of releasing it. You're passing it on to someone else. Yeah. And the guy that taught our class, he said, as someone who does that, he goes, I can't go take that stuff I've learned and tell someone else because it is confidential. He goes, he takes his dog fishing, and he pours out everything to his dog. He's just talking it to his dog. He goes, my dog must be the most depressed dog in the world because he dumps all this stuff on him. But, if you look in today's world, I look at my son. He has his device in his hand almost nonstop. It's hard to have conversations in our homes. I look at the fire stations when I go around, and we've decentralized the fire station. Everybody has their own computer, their iPad, their phone, and we don't talk enough. And so if I could say one thing that would help without having to go to anything is just sit down and talk to people more. Have conversations and invest in each other. And I think that's something you and I have done more as we've grown to know each other is just talk. And sometimes it's serious, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just sitting back and laughing, but knowing that, man, if I need something, I can call Derek. Yeah.
The world we live in nowadays is almost geared towards the opposite of that, And like you talked about, it's easy to send somebody a text, but also it's real hard to have emotion in a text. You really don't know somebody's emotion, how they're feeling, facial expressions, cues like that. So you really don't have any emotion tied to a text. And I feel like there's a lot of stuff going on like that nowadays. We're not really geared towards just having social interaction, And then when we are, where we're at a wrestling tournament, and that's organized chaos, In your career, at what point did you start thinking about mental health?
I think I was in the training division at the time, and when you see guys experiencing issues with calls and different things, and about probably 04, 05, and I think a lot of that is, I think PTSD started to become more of a buzzword during that time. Yeah, and we started realizing that firefighters are susceptible to that as well. Since that time, and I don't think I've had a chance to tell you about this, but we've come in contact with a guy named Jeff Dill, and he founded the Firefighter Behavioral Health Alliance, and Jeff has done a ton of research in moral injury, and moral injury is fairly new, and I have a good definition of it. It's a social, psychological, or spiritual harm that arises from a betrayal of one's core values, such as justice, fairness, and loyalty, harming others, failing to protect others, through error in action or failure to be protected by leaders, can all wound a person's conscience, leading to lasting anger, guilt, and shame, and can fundamentally alter one's worldview and impair their ability to trust others. And so, as a firefighter, when you go out and you're responding to some of this stuff, you see that. You see that someone's been hurt, and I couldn't do what I wanted to. I couldn't protect them. I think on the military side, And when you start looking at PTSD and moral injury, PTSD is the injury. It's the trauma that you see that happen. But I think, too, and you see this with firefighters, I think you see it with police officers, I think military, it's more of the what if or the why. Why did Derek get hurt and why was it not me? Yeah. Why am I still here? Why did that? I mean, if you're an NCO and you're leading people, why did one of the people under me get hurt? Why couldn't I protect them? And I think that's more the moral injury side, because it starts dealing with your emotions, right. And you start asking more questions of the why, and you see some of that lasting issues with that. PTSD is the trauma, and moral injury is more of the emotional side of that. And it's fairly new. There's a lot of good research being done, but it's still new. PTSD it develops when a person has experienced or witnessed a scary, shocking, terrifying, or dangerous event. These stressful or traumatic events usually involve a situation where someone's life has been threatened or severe injuries occurred. Again, the trauma side versus the emotion side. And so that's where I think we need more research. We need more data on moral injury, because I think that's what's going to see us start affecting more people.
Yeah. PTSD it's in so many shapes, sizes, peoples, colors. Like you see it a lot. I see it with youth. I know the kids that are going through stuff through coaching, and their problems, right? You know what they're going through, and you just gotta you gotta figure out, not really tiptoe around it, but you gotta treat them accordingly. And so I'm gonna say this. I want to ask if you kind of go through the same thing. Like me, when I know somebody has an issue, I don't treat them any differently. I want to talk to them about it if they want to talk to me about it. I'm not going to push any issues. I'm not going to treat them any differently than I would anybody else, because I don't want to make them feel uncomfortable. And I also don't want them to think I feel sorry for them either. Unfortunately, for me personally, if I sense somebody feel sorry for me, it was humiliating for me. It was like, why me? Why is this adult feeling sorry for me? That was my version of it growing up. Now, as an adult, I kind of keep that same path. If I know somebody's going through stuff, I will talk to them accordingly. But I just don't want them to think I feel sorry for them, even if I do. In your position as a leader in the fire department, when you know somebody's having an issue, how do you approach that situation?
And I want them to know I care.
Right.
I think that's the biggest thing. And I know that many people in the department, they don't call me Jared anymore. I'm the fire chief. And it creates obstacles. My title creates obstacles, and I realize that. And so I can sit down and talk to you, and we can talk, but my guys aren't going to come here and talk about a mental health issue with me. It's just, and that bothers me a little bit, because I want to be there for them. I think I agree. I don't try to treat them different, but I do try to let them know that I care through it, and that I am here if they need something. But no, you can't treat them different. You can't coddle them. They still have a job to do, but through that job and through our job, I think all of us, we should let people know that we care.
Right.
And I think that, again, that's one of the things through society we don't do a good job of. If we see someone struggling, sometimes we distance ourselves more than anything, because, I don't want to go along beside them, because I don't want to get that on me. And so I feel like not truly, I don't want to use the term feeling sorry, because I agree, I don't think that's good, but letting someone know that, hey, I'm here for them, and they're working through that, I think that's a good thing. But you can't force yourself on people either. Yeah. Some people want to be open, some people don't. I truly admire you, not just because of your podcast, but man, I've learned so much about you through your podcast. And having the ability to put yourself out like you do, I think it's a true sign of a leader that wants to help people. And I think that's what I see in you. I know that you've told me some of it you're doing to help yourself.
Right.
But I think by doing it, you're helping so many more people. Right. And I wish I had that strength and ability to do that, because I don't know that I would. And I think that's something that it's amazing what you're doing with it. And to be able to say, hey, I'm real and I have problems, because I think that we all do.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. When I first started the podcast, it was, as you know, just trying to get information about my dad, but man, that was a struggle. Really, like After doing about 5 of them, and I just emotionally, it was just really hard for me to do. That's kind of how I ended up where I am now. Is interviewing people. It's still that outlet, and it's still, hopefully somebody will go back and listen to other podcasts. I can't listen to them no more. I was there, I lived it, if you will, and but emotionally, it's just straining, and a lot of that too is like I was talking about earlier, like with youth going through their problem. That's traumatizing. There's nothing you can say or do about that. That's traumatizing. If you got a parent at home that is strung out on drugs, that's traumatizing for a kid. And you see them kids. As leaders, all we can try to do is be that voice of reason, but also be, tough love. That's the word I was looking for, tough love. I was trying to think of it earlier, I couldn't think of it. Tough love. I mean, that's just the way it has to be sometimes. I can be tough on you and still love you.
Absolutely.
Is there a specific point in time in your career, like an event or anything, that you remember like, I'm going to have to get more involved in this mental health?
Yeah, again, I think there was tiptoes all the way through it. I think the one thing that really changed a lot of it for me was that trip to Oregon. Okay. Opening my eyes. And it wasn't just and I think God has a different way of helping us through stuff. Because my wife, Cynthia, she was having some hard trouble with depression. And, it is easy for people who aren't experienced it just to look at someone going, well, you got to get up, pull yourself up and move on. And I didn't understand it. And I probably wasn't as caring as a husband as I should have been because, again, I haven't experienced it. But I was like, you got to get around. You got to move on. And she was struggling. And I think really that trip to Oregon really opened my eyes that, hey, this stuff is real and it can hurt. It changes your life and it can be debilitating. And so I think that helped me. I know the education I received there, we were up there for a week, and that obviously made me a certified everything because I stayed in the Holiday Inn Express and I had a week's worth of training. So I'm just enough to be dangerous. But I think it truly opened my eyes to the world of mental health.
Right.
And it's easy if you're not experiencing it just to dismiss it.
Right.
It's easy to dismiss anything if you don't go through it. And I really believe that helped me at that point. And just learning more throughout our department, and you see guys who struggle with different things, and so just really trying to open up and understand where that struggle's coming from so we can help each other with that.
Growing up, one of my biggest faults was, and even, as I became an adult, it took me a long time to figure this out, but I would hear problems, people talking about their problems, like, man, that's not a problem. And I'm still in this quote from Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan says on his podcast, the worst thing that's ever happened to you is the worst thing that's ever happened to you. Some people, the most traumatic event they've had in their life is maybe a small car ding. Somebody maybe got out and yelled at them or something. That still could affect them. Everybody reacts to something different. You said earlier, like, you've been fortunate enough to not have some of the mental health issues that you've seen. Stuff happens, people, take stuff in differently than others. You never know about support systems. Sometimes in the military, I think if you sit down and did the stats on mental health from soldiers that come in the military established with a family already, with a support system, versus the single soldiers that come in, just go to war, come back, and don't have nobody to talk to about it. They're relieving stress is just going out and getting blank out drunk with their friends on the weekend. They go to war, multiple rotations, and they just don't know how to get that off their chest. And like you said, they don't want to go see a psychiatrist. They don't want to do that. It just makes them feel weak, makes them feel like they might get pulled from the line. But the people that have a steady foundation, when they come home, they're able to get that off their chest, talk to somebody. I think there's something there. And like you said, your steady foundation was just having an open communication with your fellow firefighters. Is that something you got from your dad? And the only reason I ask that is because, like, every morning I go in the store, I see your dad in there chopping it up.
I think so. And I do feel like I've learned so much from my dad. I've been very fortunate. I have a great family. My dad, probably one of my best friends in the world. I have that ability to have that. And I don't know that we ever really sit down and visit about the instance that we went on. But when I was in college, it was one of my neatest things. I always knew when he'd had a bad call. I was making a call in the middle of the night. Hey, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm sleeping. What do you think I'm doing? Oh, I'll just see what you're up to. Well, I knew that they'd been out on something because he wouldn't have been awake at 3 o'clock in the morning otherwise or so. So I do think that we have a good relationship. And My dad is a visitor. There's no doubt about that. I don't know that he's ever met a stranger, and just loves to sit around and, he's a coffee drinker. That's one thing I didn't get from him. I'm 47 years old, and I still say I'm not old enough for coffee. I just don't have that taste, but I enjoy going up there and visiting with him and the guys at the coffee shop too. It's fun sitting back and listening. And I think that's one of the great things about Elgin. We still have that small town feel where you have that. Now we got multiple spots now because you got the McDonald's crew, you got the Brahms crew, and sometimes they mix, sometimes they don't, because you don't want to. It's just different personalities, but it's a neat thing they have, and I think that's part of investing in people. And again, I don't see this generation doing that much,
right.
And I think that's one of the things that worries me about our generation that I'm in and below us is that. I think that they're going to see more problems because we don't visit with each other.
I feel like where I'm at, I feel like I got a bunch of guys, like fellow coaches, that I can talk to, about anything, right? I don't use that as much as I should to help myself out. You know what I mean? I know, like, I could just call anybody up, like, hey, I just need to talk. I know I could call you. I don't feel like I use that to my advantage a lot, and a lot of it is because I get embarrassed. I mean, that's just all it is.
I think pride gets in the way a lot.
Oh yeah, pride's the better. Yeah, my pride gets in the way. That's
asking for help is so hard.
Yeah.
For anything, I mean, look back. I think it's ingrained in us. We've always laughed. We don't use maps anymore, but. I don't need a map. I know the way. We'll get lost, but a male, a strong-willed male, we're not going to stop and pull over and ask for help.
Yeah.
I think that goes further into this as well. It's that pride that gets in the way of asking for help, and I think that makes it hard. And I think a truly strong man that is secure in his manhood has the ability to ask for help.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we hide that in there so that we're trying to be stronger than we need to be. But I think the person who asks for help is truly stronger than the one who doesn't.
Right.
Because you're basically showing, yeah, I'm vulnerable, but I'm still going to ask for help. And so that's a greater show of strength to me than one who doesn't.
Yeah. How long was your dad a firefighter for?
Dad started in Elgin developed their department. My grandfather was actually the first fire chief. They organized in 1973, and so Dad was a volunteer up into the 2000s area. He had, I think, 29 years is what he did, and I volunteered there with him, some of it probably before I should have, and I just knew that's what I always wanted to do, so this was the only place I ever wanted to work was in Lawton because it was still close enough to home, but I could get paid. Don't even feel like I go to work.
So you went to college to be like a firefighter, right?
No, I went to Northwestern Oklahoma State University, and I went and played football up there. And
yeah, I know you played football, but what did you major in while you was there?
I was working on a health and PE degree with a minor in mass communications. I looked at coaching a little bit. This is the wrong thing to say. I was there to play football. I wasn't. I knew the job I was going to get. Northwestern didn't have a firefighting degree, so I was just taking classes,
right,
and staying eligible.
Well, there goes that question. I was going to ask, well, how did that prepare you for it, how it really goes? But
I think it did. I think
right.
There was things that you learned there, and I say more of the sports aspect.
Okay.
And it's not always popular that you have different people believe, we got to pour all our money into the classroom.
Yeah.
The classroom is very important. Don't get me wrong, but I think the things I learned in life from being a part of a team is what prepared me for where I'm at today. I mean, firefighting is a team sport, 100%, but it's believing each other. It's digging deep. It's setting goals for yourself. It's being a part of something bigger than yourself. I think everything of that is team sports, what it taught me. And sometimes you learn more in your losses than you do in your victories. And, Elgin's on a high right now, but we weren't very good back then. I learned a lot on 3-7 and 4-6 football teams. Yeah. And about not giving up, about believing in yourself, and still pushing to be better. It's one of the reasons why I wish I'd have wrestled more. I didn't wrestle till my senior year, and I had really good desire to do stuff. But wrestling, you can go out there and you set your own destiny. You're not relying on someone else, and so it's one of the reasons why we pushed Jace to wrestle so much. And I'm glad he did. And I think the best wrestler in the house might have been my wife. And, girls wrestling wasn't available back then, but she's got a mean streak in her.
Yeah, I mean, she realistically, with her background in gymnastics, right? She probably would have been really good at wrestling.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, she'd have been really good at it. I guess while we're on that subject, can you talk a little bit just about, Jace's recruiting in the Navy and stuff like that?
It's been a heck of a ride.
Right.
With me going through a recruiting process was a lot different, 30-something years ago, 25 years ago. Recruiting now is all digital. It's the electronic game. Twitter is such a huge thing, and I would say it's an emotional roller coaster. And I don't think I realized how much stress is on the kids during that. But we started out, we fell into a couple of things. We had some people come by his junior year and invite him to some camps, and we thought we were bigger than we were. And then we figured out really quick that on the offensive line side of the ball, there's a matrix they're looking for to be able to fit into. And while Jace is big, he's 6'3", 285, he wasn't tall enough. And so that was a hard pill to swallow, that no one could say that he wasn't a good lineman. He just wasn't tall enough to be seen. And so, got discouraged a little bit his junior year, somewhere between his sophomore and junior year. But met a coach out at Texas Tech. He was at the camp. He was from the New Mexico Highlands, and he got an offer from him. And everybody told us that D2s don't offer juniors, and well, he got one, and went to another camp or two, and we really fell in love with Fort Hays State when he got that offer. And didn't really think a lot about the military academies. Jace didn't. Cynthia and I thought a lot about him, with his academic background and his size. When you look at the lineman size at all three of the academies, he kind of fits there, and he didn't have anything. He didn't want to have anything to do with it. And Coach Romero at Army was actually the first one that really came on strong. And Jace was talking to him one day, and he said, "I want you to know something." He goes, 90% of our cadets will never see combat. And he said, the 10% that do is only because they want. And I think that intrigued Jason, because I think you see kids out there right now, they're growing up in a different time than I did. War is a realistic thing for every one of them. Wow. If you go in the military, you're going to war, and not everybody's cut out for that. And I think that was something that was weighing in the back of his mind. And so Coach Romero really helped him with that, hey, there's other jobs in the military than being on the front line. And so, and then there's a guy up in Oklahoma City, Coach George. He runs a kind of a quarterback academy and lineman, the quarterback impact, does a really good job. And he has some ties to the Navy. And when he heard Army was after Jace, he called Coach Yokitis from the Naval Academy, and they start getting involved. And we had 2 in-home visits back to back, Navy on a Tuesday and Army on a Wednesday, and they couldn't have went better. And really exciting times to see 2 of the premier colleges and leadership institutes, and that wanted our son to play football. And so we took a trip out to the East Coast, and I went to New York for the first time, and Jason and I went up to West Point, and it was absolutely amazing. Coaching staff was great, from the head coach, Coach Monken, all the way down to Coach Vitti, the offensive line coach, Coach Romero, our recruiter. Everything was great facilities. And, we left, and Jace goes, that just got harder, because he was kind of leaning towards Navy before then. And so we drove down to Annapolis and met Coach Guillermo, which that was the first time we got to meet him. He's the offensive line coach. Coach Yokitis was there, and Coach Newberry, their head coach, and Conklin, their offensive coordinator. So everything couldn't have went better at both places. And I think it came down to relationships. And I think that's one thing that kids today, I would suggest anybody, and all of Jason's friends, a great group of kids getting recruited, it's about where you fit the best in the best relationship. Maybe not the shiniest school, but you're going to be pouring your heart and soul out for college athletics for 4 or 5 years, depending if you redshirt or not. And you got to make sure you're in the right place. Someone's going to be able to take care of you. And I think that's what he felt at Navy with Coach Guillermo. He's 29 years old. He played center on a Clemson national championship team, and really felt like he had a great relationship there. So he ended up committing to Navy. And of course, there's still hoops we got to jump through, because you just can't say I want to go to school there. And we almost nightly we work on something on his application process to be accepted into the Naval Academy. And but really exciting and humbling when you start thinking about the people that have gone to those places and what they stand for. And again, it could have been Air Force, Army, or Navy, any of them, and we'd have been just as proud, because those are people going to school, but yet going to defend our country and setting up and defending our freedom. And when you start thinking about it and the commitment that they're making, the sacrifices they're making, it's really a cool place and amazing to be a part of.
No, that is awesome. I hope, my kids get that opportunity to go to a school like that. I've always told Dax, if he's ever want to join the military, I want you to go to school. I want you to go in as an officer. Let's talk about West Point when we get to that point. I just think it's a good start if you're really looking forward to, if you want to make a career out of the military. And this is for anybody. If you want to make a career out of the military, it involves some type of planning. Recruiter will take you right off the bat. You don't have to plan nothing. They will put you in a job that you don't even like. They will tell you how much you will like it. They'll tell you whatever you want. But if you really think about it as a career, though, you have to do some type of planning, get something that you really enjoy. Ultimately, I think you should have school before you go in so you can make a better educated decision. But with that being said, any young kid, if they decide they want to be a firefighter, right? What would be the best route for them to go, and what are some do's and don'ts, you would say?
I think it starts in high school, and that's one of the things that we try to encourage. Science and math, I know that nobody likes to hear that sometimes, but firefighting is not just a game where you go put the wet stuff on the red stuff. There's not of knowledge that goes into how to do this job, and then also think the healthcare side. Again, I said earlier, 70% of what we do is EMS related. Right. So you're going to be involved in EMS. As far as what you could do to prepare yourself, we encourage people to go to Great Plains Technology Center. They have a great firefighter EMT program. You can walk away with certifications and come in here. It's the same certifications we would take. OSU has a great degree program that you can go take. I'd never tell someone not to do that. Right. OSU, OKC. There's several fire academies across the state that you can get into. And really, in today's world, and we hear a lot about recruitment, and we don't have the numbers we used to, and I think that's every profession we see that in. But the one thing I will say is we see a more complete applicant today than we did before. When I was hired in 2000, there was 200-300 people that applied, and there was 3 of us that got hired that year. Last year we hired, I think, 19, and we had 25 people to choose from. But out of the 25 people, everybody had something. They're bringing certifications to the game now. So we don't have near the numbers, but we have a better applicant that's coming in. And so that's what I would encourage anyone to do is to go and get some education. Probably no different than any other thing is keep your nose clean. I don't think kids understand that the choices they make at 16 to 18 years old, maybe even younger, are going to impact them for the rest of their life. Right. We've talked to Jace about his social media. Keep your social media clean. Think about the stuff that you're putting on that, which includes your friends. I mean, you got to be careful who your friend and what they're putting out, because all of that's fair game. And when you go start looking, they do it in the recruiting world, and we do it in the hiring world. That we go look at your social media, because when we put the name Lawton Firefighter on you, we can't have stuff out there, and that's going to be problems. And so it's keeping your nose clean and understanding that you're making choices at a young age that are going to affect you. And I think it's somewhat unfair. I didn't have that. There was no Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or Snapchat when I was growing up. But today's world, it is what it is. And so we're going to use that to make sure that we get the most complete applicant and the best applicant we can. So really just staying out of trouble and doing the right thing. And we encourage team sports. The one thing I think that we miss on some of that is there's other things out there that you get those same benefits from. Like our band programs do a great job. Yeah. It's all about discipline and self-worth and understanding being a part of something bigger than yourself. And I think that you can get there from other places in athletics, but that was just the route I took.
I was just talking about this with Tyson Southern yesterday. We did a quick little podcast. We was talking about social media and Facebook, right? So, it shows up the memories. Mm-hmm. I see stuff that I posted years ago, and I'm like, what idiot tagged me in this? And it was me tagging other people. I'm like, oh, Jesus.
Yep.
What was I thinking, Yeah, so, that's a good point, though. Social media, you got to keep that clear. Even as adults, you're going to look at a job. It's the same thing, But, Jerry, we're about 40 minutes into it. Got any closing words?
No, not a lot, but I thank you for coming in. I think that we need to continue to have these discussions about mental health, because every time we do, we're tearing a wall down. And like I said, I think maybe before we got started or at the start, if we get one person to go, oh, it is okay to go get help, then we've done a good thing today, and it was worth our time. And if I can ever be of assistance to someone, my door is open. I'll put my phone number out. You can contact me on Facebook. If you need to talk about something and you feel comfortable talking to me, call me, 580-695-4217, 24/7. It's on. And we need to help people more. We got to be there for them. And if someone needs something, that's what we should be doing.
Amen.